Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar hosted by Centric Software to show you how to reduce costs, risk and time when moving to Microsoft Office 365. Dan Kirtley, Product Marketing Manager at Centric Software, will discuss the benefits and challenges of Office 365. He will also explain how 365 IQ, an analytics tool by Centric Software, allows you to optimize purchasing and perform an efficient migration while significantly reducing risk of failure. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box in the bottom right-hand side of the screen, and Dan will answer them at the end. So Dan, over to you.
Great, thank you very much, Jo. Just to start, as I say, as Jo mentioned, I'm a Product Marketing Manager here at Centric Software, and what I'm going to do is talk through at very high level right-sizing your Office 365 licensing requirements, going to ensure a successful migration, and also discuss about how to subsidise your migration costs by using the Office 365, Centric Software 365 IQ tool. So the agenda for the day is introduction to Office 365. We'll talk about the different SKUs and licenses which are available, and the benefits for different customers different end users that you have. Challenges for different customers in terms of migration, in terms of knowing which license is best for them, and then move on to 365 IQ, which is our analytics tool by Centric Software, which allows you to optimize purchasing and also gives upfront data towards achieving an efficient migration. And then we'll briefly discuss related products which are in the Centric Software portfolio and go into a Q&A session at the end. So as Jo mentioned, if you have any questions throughout this webinar, feel free to type them in. Jo will ask and I will answer for you. So without further ado, I'll move on to Microsoft Office 365. So as you can see by the diagram here, what I'm showing is the 4 of the SKUs which are available under Microsoft Office 365. Now this is a very small subset of what is available to customers. This is the enterprise level. There's also a small business and medium-sized business set of SKUs which are available, but it gives you an idea of the huge range of prices for the license per user per month. So we're talking £1.30 or $2 per month, all the way up to £16.50 and $22 per month. Now, at the high end, what's provided to customers and to users of the product is the full set of productivity tools, and not only is that available online, and of course Office 365 we very much talk about it being a new licensing method and moving towards the cloud, but this also gives the option for offline usage as well. And what we found, and we'll talk about it in more detail, is that actually a lot of our customers and the end users that they have on their estates do need to work offline. So the first thing that we want to think about, in fact, of course there are more than just just Office 365 or the Microsoft solutions for work productivity tools. The main competitor to Microsoft is Google Apps, and they provide a very simple single license which provides the top level of applications, and so that would be for sheets, for documents, for PowerPoint. So if you find that all of your users have a very simple set of requirements or a very standard set of requirements, and they work almost entirely online, this may well be a good fit for your organisation. What we'll show throughout this presentation is just exactly how to determine that. So I'll move on from this slide to talk about what the high-level migration challenges are for someone who is partaking in a migration to Office 365. So firstly, firstly, we need to validate the fit of Office 365, as I just talked about, and let's presume that Office 365 does appear to be the most appropriate solution. So if you move on from that, you can move to preparing for migration. And what we do in this instance is split out the preparation for migration into 3 separate high-level buckets. One is reducing costs, so it's the first thing that we want to look at. So reducing costs in terms of the actual project costs, so length of the project would be one example, or support costs at the end of it. And also to optimise the cost of the license across an organisation. What Centrix Software have found is that often there are different fits for different types of users, which of course makes sense. There are many different types of users within your organisation, and for each department, people will require different applications and will use those applications in a different manner. So one size fits all often isn't the best way, and so being able to split out the licenses into separate buckets often works very well. We also look at reducing project risk, and by this, what we mean is getting all of the data up front to mitigate risk further down the line. So to give you an example, and as we'll talk about this more, one example would be knowing about all of the applications which each user is going to want to run, or perhaps if there is a particular add-in that a set of users or one user uses which is essential to their job, we want to ensure that we're aware of that up front, so that further down the line there isn't the risk that the user doesn't have that. They have a particular task that's essential to their role, and they are unable to do that, and IT have to rush around and try and fix that for that particular user. And also, we think about optimizing timescales. So being able to plan up front and to be able to think about all of the different points at which there are project deadlines or subsets of project deadlines. What it means is that we can kind of fit some of the complex tasks alongside some more simple tasks, rather than having one straight line where maybe if there was a complex task which is being undertaken, then which is held up, there can be simpler tasks which are being undergoing at the same period of time. So to go back to the Office 365 slide, and we look at the different sets of SKUs which are available. So as I mentioned, £1.30 all the way up to £16.50 or $2.22. What we have essentially here is we can combine this and think about it in terms of a risk versus cost analysis. So at the low level, and we're not saying that you necessarily would do this, but the highest risk versus cost is to go for the very simplest SKU. So providing all of your users the minimum functionality which is available. So in this instance, we're talking about Exchange Online Kiosk, which is just provides to the end user their mail, but that's available as a kiosk plan, which means that multiple users will use a particular PC. And Office 365 Enterprise, that again is for kiosk users, so a small subset of the applications which are available in the higher SKUs. And then right up at the other end, so where we're reducing cost. Reducing risk but increasing cost, is to potentially go for one of the higher SKU, so Office 365 Enterprise E3 or E4, where all of the well-known Microsoft Office applications are available. They're available online and offline, and they would be potentially available to all of your end users. So there, as I mentioned, you're reducing the risk that that one of your end users doesn't have the available set of applications to them to do their work. But what you're also doing is paying over the odds to reduce that risk, because there will be almost definitely there will be a number of users who don't require the full set of applications. So what we want to be able to do up front is to provide the analysis which will give the type of data to get the balance between the high risk and the high cost. And I'll talk about that more now. So what Centric Software 365 IQ Analytics tool does is it sits on all of the devices across a customer's network, across an estate. That can be users which are actually physically on the network, or it can be mobile remote users, but Windows devices. And those devices will report back analytical data about the usage on those particular devices, and it will also tie in the data about the given user who is on the particular device. So the crucial thing here is that not only is it looking at what applications are being run and how those applications are being run, i.e. whether they're being a user is creating a document, or they're merely accessing that document to read, which they might do with a PDF file, for example. What we do is tie together the usage towards a particular user, so that when we move forward into the user licensing role, which is how Microsoft Office 365 is delivered, we have it based upon users which on the users and not the devices. So just to give a brief example, if you look at the table here, what 365 IQ will do, and this is just a sample, a subset of the different tests which are performed. It will look to see whether, as I mentioned, a user is a document creator. It will look at whether they use desktop productivity tools or not. It will look at whether they're offline or online, and that's actually tied in with the particular times in which they're using the application. So it's not just analysing over a period of time they are offline. It's actually tying in with when applications are particularly used. We look at whether they use a web document store, whether they have an online presence for applications such as Lync, etc., and whether they use email. So all of these combined together with a number of other further tests provide us with a recommendation for the ideal fit for a user, and then they are grouped together across the user estate, and we can provide, tied in with a licensing cost, what that will provide to or what that will cost the enterprise. So if we look at an example, and this is a real customer that we analysed, of roughly 2,500 users. The cost, not bearing in mind any discounts, so the list price to that end user would be £453,000 or $742,000 per year for 2,500 enterprise E3 users. So the highest SKU, again, with all of the applications that are required for all of your users. So if we think about this now, what 365 IQ has done is it's amalgamated all of that data, and it has provided back to the customer or the partner an optimal price point. So that price point is where, going back to the risk-cost analysis, this is the optimal point where the prices as low as possible without introducing any risk. So what we're saying here is that if you went at this optimal price point, you would be able to provide all of the applications which are required for all of the users across your network. So, and if we look at this in terms of the actual cost difference, that's 27% cost saving. And here is the split of different SKUs which are recommended across the board. So interestingly, you'll see that there aren't, it's not a huge complex number of different SKUs which should be made available for different users, because obviously that kind of introduces a layer of complexity there anyway to make sure that each user is tied into the right set of applications. In fact, we've got 5 different SKUs which should be made available to your end users. We also look at going back to the Google Apps fit versus Microsoft Office 365. What I mentioned is that Office 365 is available both online and offline, whereas Google Apps is only available as online only. And through our analysis, we've seen that there's a very small percentage of users across the entire application, across the entire estate, who would be appropriate as online-only users. So at the same time, we look at potential cost savings which could be made on the estate involving a move to Office 365, or in fact the later versions of Microsoft Office. So what we found is what we analysed is the number of uses across the estate of Microsoft Office, and then also look at Adobe Acrobat Pro, LibreOffice, Microsoft Works, OpenOffice, and a number of other productivity tools. And what we can do there is make a suggestion about potentially cutting the licensing costs from those further productivity tools. So, for example, Adobe Acrobat is quite a costly tool. In fact, I was looking at purchasing it myself today. I was quite surprised at how much it costs. But our usage analytics can actually show what a user uses these particular applications for. If a user just uses Adobe Acrobat for creating PDFs, then we can say that's available within the Microsoft Office set. So that user no longer needs to use Adobe Acrobat Pro, take that off, and immediately get a license revoked and some money back from that. LibreOffice is a free tool, but of course it's not just about the upfront cost or the direct cost, which you can see through licensing. Removing further applications from a device also reduces the risk of there being any kind of support issues when perhaps a new application is installed onto the device, or these applications update or anything like that. So removing those when they are no longer needed can reduce support costs and time as well. And there we go. We're just confirming could be replaced by Office 365 tools. Okay, so we've talked really about the cost savings that can be made, and those being license costs directly relating to Microsoft, and also license costs relating to removing other third-party applications. So then, if we think about the stage in which we're moving on to, we're now looking at the actual implementation stage. So there are a number of challenges which should be overcome, or maybe not even challenges, just particular points that need to be looked at. So if we first look at system requirements, there are device requirements that Microsoft lists for the particular system requirements that are required of them, and also operating system and browser compatibility. So there's a minimum set of requirements for Office 365. We also look at content stores. So what we often find is there's a large sprawl of stores across a network, and that might be map drives. It might be drives which are local to a device. It might be USB devices. We can look at all of that and return details about all of those devices. And it's not just the mapping of those drives, or we could, if we're not talking just map drive M, we go right down into the path, which then allows the administrator who wants to move content, and it has to be moved into the cloud, to plan how they can go about doing that. We'll look into that in further detail. Also, we look at user profiles, and so as I mentioned earlier on, we know, of course, that in almost any organisation there's a large split of the different types of user within different organisations. So it might find that particular users require macros to run their documents or create their documents. Might be add-ins, individual file shares as well. So where an end user has created a file share on their device, we know that they will need to this will need to be made available online if there are if there are documents which are being accessed from those file share locations. And also we want to look at users of access, i.e. the access application and those users who access those databases as well, and look at at what they're used for. So look at whether there are multiple users accessing those access databases, see how many times I can say access in one sentence, and how many are accessing that for more than one user. So they're actually using it as a full database, because that may require some additional upfront migration tasks. So this is where I tie back to complexities of the migration task. So we can potentially consider those, resolving those issues up front, and at the same time looking at the simplistic migration tasks for other users. Additionally, we might look at identifying requirements for other third-party migration tools. So to be clear, 365IQ is very much an analytics tool. It's an upfront data analytics tool. It will not actually perform the migration, and there are other tools which can automatically package particular applications or can perform automatic migration of content. And that if you are aware of where most content is actually accessed from, then potentially you can pinpoint where a third-party migration tool would be really useful, and also where it may not be, and where manual work is much better. And all of this adds up to a much more efficient way of planning your migration. And as I mentioned earlier, it's really importantly is reducing risk. So risk of failure of the project, risk of time slippage. So let's go back to device readiness. So as I mentioned, Office 365, the applications which will be installed locally onto particular devices have a minimum operating system requirement. Windows XP, as we all know, is soon to be retired, and at that point any Office 365 applications will no longer be supported on that operating system. So we're still using the same customer example here. There are over 1,800 users of Windows XP, so all of those will need to be migrated prior to actually migrating those users to Office 365. bear in mind, I think this is data taken from a couple of months back, so I think this customer should be well on the way with migrating towards Windows 7. And then as well, there are requirements for the online versions of the Office 365 application, so Word Online, Excel Online, PowerPoint Online, etc. And those are the latest versions of the browsers. So up front, the administrator, the partner who may be who the customer may be working with can see the different browsers which are being used by on devices across the customer network, and really quickly up front say these are the browsers which need to be updated. So then we move on to document locations. So as I mentioned, we look at Mac drives, look at local drives, look at file paths and USB drives, and then can split those out into the most popular set of document locations. So this the table that I'm showing here, sorry, the chart that I'm showing here lists the top 10 document stores, but this goes out way into 68 document locations which are used across the network. But way further down the line, there's very few uses of those documents. But of course, that's not to say that that means that those documents don't need to be we don't need to worry about them. But looking simplistically at the location of Mac drive D, and as I mentioned, the underlying file path that we know about, this would be where our primary focus would be for moving those documents up into the cloud. So Microsoft requires that all documents, obviously, as they need to be accessed online using online applications, the content also needs to be online. So that means that they need to be migrated to either SharePoint Online or SkyDrive or OneDrive, as it's just about to be rebranded. So this would be the recommended first move. Let's look at where most documents are accessed and get that migrated as early as possible. But the other important part is the actual split of those documents and which document type exists in each location. And actually, sorry, just to make the point very clear, we're not talking here about where documents are stored, i.e. where documents are flatly stored. This is where documents are actually accessed and actually used. So, and we're looking at this over a long period of time, so we have a good level of confidence that the documents that are accessed over that period of time will be the documents which are required by each and every user post-migration. So the split here is a lot of Word applications, Adobe, Excel. For the most part, that migration should be fairly simple. As I mentioned, access can be more taxing, and that may require some kind of conversion before it can be made available online. Or alternatively, there could be a different method or different document type which could be used. Often, if access is used by only one user, they're not using it as a relational database, they're using it just as a flat spreadsheet, which of course can be converted into Excel and made accessible a lot easier. So let's go back to the types of migrations. So once we've performed the full analysis and we have the data which is reported back, which may either be to you or to your partner who is performing the migration for you, we see simple migrations where users have been matched to their machines. All of the machines that the users use meet requirements. the priority storage locations have been migrated, and no complex migration challenges have been identified. For those simple migrations, that means you can go now. You can get all of those users up and running on Office 365 as soon as possible. But the complex migrations, machines might not be ready, they might require an operating system upgrade or device upgrade for RAM or anything like that. Macro files may have been identified, and in this instance, we need to check whether they will be compatible with a move to Office 365. An end user may be using add-ins, they may be using Access databases, or they may have personal file shares which need to be upgraded. In this particular instance, we looked at the number of users for a particular file share, and the maximum was actually 23 users who shared this particular personal file share. So you know that it just shows the kind of importance of knowing that up front, because if we just remove that or removed access to that by going to Office 365, that could actually potentially have quite an upshot to those 23 users. So I've now discussed the whole kind of migration steps. So what I want to talk about now is some of the offers that we provide through Centrix. So what I'm discussing, what I've obviously been discussing is very much theoretical. So this is based upon data that we've seen on a particular customer estate. What we really like to do is to provide a free trial to our customers, so that they can get up and running. And in fact, I have it listed here up to 200 users. What we've changed this to now, so apologies, this is a slightly old slide. 5 users, we can get you up and running. The analytics that we provide are SaaS-based, so the agents which are installed, agents can be installed onto machines, and then data is reported back to our SaaS infrastructure, and we can then get you up and running and provide you with the sorts of analytics that I've been talking about, and show the kind of examples that you might find. There's also the potential to have Microsoft subsidize your migration. There is Microsoft have a limited offer which relates to partner of record, and that relates to the incentive that Microsoft are providing, because they want to get as many people onto Office 365, get them up and running on their most modern platform and infrastructure. So they provide a partner of record program, which means that the migration costs can be subsidized. You can obviously talk to us more about that if you're interested in that, and if you want to contact us, you can do so by contacting office365@centrixsoftware.com. So I just want to briefly discuss the other products which are in our portfolio. So to explain in a little bit more detail, 365 IQ is one of the modules of our Workspace IQ suite, and Workspace IQ overall provides analytics across devices. For 365 IQ, we very much narrowed that down to answering the questions which are required for a migration to Office 365. We also provide some further modules: Application IQ, Desktop IQ, Virtual IQ, and Cloud IQ, which all relate to different solutions that a customer, partner, project manager might be looking for. So Application IQ, for example, looks at potential software rationalization. Desktop IQ, we're looking at migration, so that might be a migration from XP to Windows 7 or from Windows 7 to 8. Virtual IQ is for migration to a virtual platform, and Cloud IQ is a more generic module where a customer can answer questions about a particular cloud application that they're interested in migrating to. So that might be, for example, might be Dropbox, might be Salesforce, So there are a set of answers that we can provide, much as we do for 365 IQ. Workspace Universal brings all of that together. So if you're a large organisation, often there are a number of different projects which are being undertaken at a given period of time, and a lot of different innovations might be being undertaken. What Workspace Universal allows an end user to do, or the IT department to do, is to provide a skin for the end user, so that the end user is basically can't see the underlying changes which are being made. So if they go into the Universal portal and they access, for example, Microsoft Word, one day they could be accessing Microsoft Word online or via Citrix, and the next day they could be accessing it through 365. But the Workspace Universal provides that skin so that any changes which are being made are underlying changes, and they don't affect the end user. So in summary, what I've shown you here is how to reduce the license costs of Office 365 adoption whilst also reducing risk, reducing the operational costs of implementation and the risk of failure. We've also looked at understanding the steps required to migrate all users and their relevant data successfully to Office 365, and also considered how to remove unnecessary and potentially costly applications. So your free trial details that I spoke about earlier on will be emailed to you, and in fact, as part of signing up to the webinar, you would have also had an email before. So if you're interested in getting up and running, that's all ready for you. There will be another email which comes out, and all you have to do is get those agents installed, and we can provide you with interim reports within a week. And we can talk to you about the types of results that you can expect to see. For partners who are on the call and interested in hearing more, go to partner@centricsoftware.com. If you email that, we will endeavour to get back to you as soon as possible. So on that note, I will pass back to Joe just to see if we have had any questions during this webinar. If, of course, you have any other questions, feel free to ask them in the Q&A box, and I will answer them as well.
Yes, thank you, Dan. We have had a few questions come through. First question from Michael: how long does it take to get useful data?
Okay, thanks, Michael. So, as I mentioned, 1 week is around about the time that we can start providing useful data. So we would call that a kind of preliminary report, because that gives a lot of the high-level data. What's quite important, though, is obviously when you consider the types of roles that an organisation might undertake. There are some roles which are very time-specific or calendar-specific. So, for example, the accounts department might only run applications at their quarter end or month end. So we'd really want to look at the full set before providing all of the information. But that being said, a lot of the information can be provided quite quickly, and you can get up and running with, being mindful that there may be other applications which are found slightly further down the line.
Great, thanks, Dan. And another question that's come through from Manish: how do you work with partners?
Okay, so often, as I explained, 365 IQ is very much a tool to get you up and running, and setting the migration up and running in the best way possible. So we work with partners who are experienced in these types of migration, who will understand the data, and they will work with you as a customer to perform that migration.
Great, and another question from Ben: could you explain how you can select different SKUs?
Yes, so what our analytics tool will do is look at a number of different activities which are performed by a particular user. So that might be to when they read a document, do they just read that document, or do they do any more work on it? So do they create a document? Look at other particular things. All of these basically relate to a bullet point that you would look at in the SKUs which are available to you. So the reason that we've kind of gone about this and really focused on 365 is that there are a tremendous number of options which are available to you. So it's quite, it can be quite bewildering set of options which are available for each SKU, and we have pulled all of them out and set them into a matrix which then allows us to recommend those SKUs to you.
Thank you very much, Dan. So there don't seem to be any other questions coming through. So if that's it for now, I think we'll end the presentation there. Thank you very much to Dan for presenting and for everyone joining today. Thank you.
Thank you.